You might laugh at the tinfoil hat crowd, but what if they're actually onto something? Not about the conspiracies, but about the courage to think differently. In today's episode, I'm unpacking what they can teach us about personal growth, about breaking comfort zones, and about finding new levels of performance. High performance doesn't live in the safe zone, so let's explore where it actually begins. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. I always find it interesting that as soon as someone wants to bring anything to the table that maybe is outside of the realm of someone's belief system, then particularly in a news space, that people are quick to label them tinfoil hat wearers. For me, it's looking at, okay, they're looking at the world in a different way. So what can we learn from them? What can we take from a different way of looking at the world, a different perspective, and apply it to our own life? Now, this is not to say that we're going to take on board things that are clearly far-fetched, but it's also being open to the fact that there's a whole lot of stuff about the world that you just don't know. There's a fantastic pie graph. I'm sure I mentioned this on a recent episode, talking about there's like a 90-something% of what we don't even know that we don't know. There's a small percentage that we know. Then there's another section that we know that we don't know. So we're conscious of these different things, but we know that we don't know a lot of detail about it. But like 90+%, we don't even know that we don't know. There's so much information out there. Yeah, the power in our phone is like what they had in supercomputer, like thousands times what a supercomputer had going back to these early computer days. There's just so much knowledge out there, and the reality is that when there's a certain way of doing things and people get on board with it, then it just becomes like it's a given. This is how we do things. But you would also know that if you go into an environment where people go, oh, this is just how we've done things, and everyone does it, and it's just the accepted way, that quite often that you would have seen, because you're a high performer, because you see the world differently, you would have seen that, well, actually, what if we tried it this way? What if we applied a different process to that? What if we looked at that through a different lens? And so I would encourage you to look at all parts of the world in that way, looking as a tinfoil hatter, but specifically on your own journey. So if there's an area of your life that you've been particularly challenged, that you've hit a few roadblocks, you've hit a few brick walls, or you've had some good performances, but then there's always a setback, or you've got a certain level of self-doubt, it's being open to there being a whole heap of information out there that you've just never been exposed to. It still happens to me now. Like, one of the challenges is that when you change how you think about something, when you look at things differently, there's always someone that's going to come in and say, someone who you know well, they go, oh, but you used to say this. Have you changed your mind? And it's like, yeah, actually I have, because I've learned new information. I'm not so stuck on old beliefs, because the ability to grow and the ability to perform better, the ability to continue to extend yourself, to get consistency, you've got to break the mold to a certain degree. You've got to crack open what has been previously and look at how you can put things together differently. I know with my physical health, I know I've shared this one before too, but it's an important message, is that I've been told by a number of doctors that there were certain things that I'm just going to have to live with, until someone cracked me open and said, well, what if you looked at it this way? What if you didn't buy into those diagnoses? What if you believe that there was a solution? Well, what then? And so, again, I would encourage you to have that open mind. Somewhere where you're stuck, you might require new thinking. And what I know is that the more you get caught in this is the way everyone does it, the more it just becomes you're just following the crowd. And you know that when you follow the crowd, you end up where most of the crowd is, which is not happy, underperforming, not seeing that they're capable of much more. They're just stuck in that day-to-day, continuing the same repeated cycle that they always have. But you want different. You want more than that. You know that you're meant for more than that. And so it does require you to look outside of your current sphere of thinking. So how do you do that? It's all well and good to say open your mind, but how do you do that? And the first place is always start with what is it or who is it that you want to be? And if you're going to be that person, what is it you want in your life? What does that look like? Who do you need to be? Which means what do you need to change about yourself to make that happen? What are some of the steps you'll need to take? So it's putting a bit of meat on the bone about your future, about your life, about where you're heading, about what you want to do, about the things you want to have in your life. It does require some work. It requires some structure, and it requires some planning, and of course it requires action. The most important thing is changing your thinking. I remember early days of my growth. When I say growth, I'm not talking about from a young age. I'm talking about as late 30s, like learning all this new stuff and just being fascinated with hearing people talk about mindset, pushing me out of my comfort zone, cringing as I listened to the things that this person was saying that I needed to change about myself, because I was like, oh, I know I need to do that, but I don't know how. It just seems so far out of my comfort zone. Change your mindset. Get a team around you. Get a mentor. Upgrade your thinking. All of these things. I remember thinking, oh man, how am I going to do all those things? How am I going to afford all of those things? If the pain's big enough, if the desire to change is big enough, if that commitment to yourself that you are going to go off after what you know you're capable of, well, then it requires a shift in thinking. And I don't know anyone who has made those changes and regrets it. I don't know anyone that's gone on that journey of investing in themselves, of opening their mind up to a different way of thinking, to being open to new solutions and new opportunities coming to them, which are out of their comfort zone, outside of their current belief system, but acting on it anyway, having setbacks, still moving forward. I don't know anyone who's done that regrets it. I know that it's come with challenges. I know that sometimes it could mean that at times it feels like you're almost, it's almost isolation. It's almost alone. You're feeling like you've got this new way of thinking. You're like, why can't other people see this? And sometimes, the conversations with the people you usually hang out with can get more challenging, because you're like, it's like they're talking a different language now that I'm learning this stuff, but it's so worth it. And it's challenging, but you just won't regret it. You won't regret it. So, put your tinfoil hat on, go out there and start looking at some of these things in the world. And don't be too quick to dismiss them. But also, this is my personal theory, is people that go down the rabbit hole of some of these conspiracy theories, what it actually teaches them is to face their fears. Because I know I've been on that journey. I've been down a whole heap of rabbit holes, and it does fill you with fear, because part of you is like, that can't be true. And there's part of you like, but actually, what if it is? That actually makes a bit of sense. It makes more sense than maybe some of the other explanations I've heard. Now, whether it's true or not, that's not the important part, is that you have to face your fear. You have to address your fear. You have to move past your fear to get where you really want to go. Because ultimately, all of that stuff is a testing ground, but it's also a distraction. So when I say put your tinfoil hat on, your tinfoil hat for your journey, for your new way of thinking, that will challenge other people in your world. And they will react at times in a way because it challenges their very belief system. If they go and see you growing, if they go and see you living your life differently, whether they like it or not, it mirrors back to them all of their fears, insecurities, areas where they'd like to be better. And the easiest natural response is to bring people back to their tribe by cutting down what other people are doing. They're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it to be mean or nasty. They're doing it because it feels safe. And it feels safe if someone in my tribe is coming back to what I know. Because if you change yourself, if you change who you are, people don't necessarily like that. They got really fond of who you've been. And if you're going to show up differently, it's kind of like, it's a shock to the system. So you're going to get challenged by those things. But again, it's going to be worth it. And the best bit is, I remember having this thought going, oh man, like I wish I could pass these messages on, wish people would listen. But ultimately, when you show up differently, the people around you react differently too. So if you don't go in there worried about what the reaction's going to be, instead you just be strong in yourself, it's almost like everyone changes with you. The key is being able to stay true to yourself on the journey, to be able to stay calm, because sometimes people will react in a negative way, but be true to the journey. The thought that comes to mind is that Ange Postecoglou. Now, love him or hate him, somewhere in between, you can't help but respect the guy because he's been true to himself. I read an article today from one of his players, and he says that this is what the player said. This is what Ange says to us. We got to do things our way personally, and you've got to be true to yourself, and you've got to go out there and be the best version of you by being the truest version of you, not by being someone that someone else tells you should be. And you know he's getting told, Ange, that is plenty of times how he should be doing things. But he's being steadfast in what he believes is the right way for him. It's his own journey. He knows it. He knows it can bring success, but he's also open to changing things as well. So how can you bring more of your personal truth to your journey, to your story, to the way you operate, and being open to putting that personal tinfoil hat on and know that that's going to come with some challenges, but it's always going to come with you landing in a much better place with no regrets. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.